Welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, and these are the top stories from across the continent. While Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine enters its fifth year, President Cyril Ramaphosa thanks his counterpart Vladimir Putin for helping to secure the return of 17 South Africans tricked into joining the Russia-Ukraine war. The military spokesperson for the M23 rebel group is reportedly killed in an army drone strike in eastern DR Congo. The attack happened near Rubaya in North Kivu and came after several days of sustained drone attacks on the area by the Congolese army. And more than 6 million people on the brink of famine in Somalia, as the country is facing widespread drought following 2 consecutive failed rainy seasons. Substantial funding cuts have forced humanitarian partners to decrease or suspend critical life-saving programs. Now to our top story. The men believed they were traveling to Russia for bodyguard training, but instead found themselves on the front line in Ukraine. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has thanked President Vladimir Putin for helping secure their return. To get more details on the story, France 24's Eunice Masson joins us live from Cape Town. So Eunice, did South Africa manage to repatriate those men from a war zone? How did they do it?
Yes, we know they have repatriated the men successfully. We know it started with a phone call between President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Putin agreed to help get the men back to South Africa about 14 days ago on the 10th of February. And according to an MP who is close to the matter, Chris Hutton, who has been speaking to us quite often, the men were taken in groups of 5 from where they were based in Ukraine, taken back to Russia, and from there they flew back to South Africa. 11 men are expected tomorrow, while 4 arrived last week. France 24 published an article in late December about 2 young men who joined the group from Botswana, and at this stage they remain unaccounted for. In terms of the full amount of the South African men, 17 in total, 2 remain in Russia. According to the presidency, who spoke today about the matter, 1 is recovering in a hospital in Moscow for a few months before returning, while the final member is still being processed before traveling back to South Africa.
So Eunice, what will happen to the men once they arrive in South Africa?
Yeah, so it's understood that upon their arrival, they are immediately taken in for questioning by the Hawks. Late last year, President Ramaphosa called for an investigation into how these men were recruited, and this investigation is still ongoing. I did, however, manage to speak to Brigadier Thandi Mbambo from the Hawks, the entity leading this investigation, but as expected, they cannot comment on an ongoing investigation. She did, however, confirm that when the men arrive in the country, they will be questioned. And depending on this questioning, the men will be released or not. Important to note that under South African law, it is illegal for citizens to join or support foreign armed forces without government approval. Under this law, they might face charges, but at this point, the investigation is ongoing, and we hope that more information would shed light on how exactly these men were recruited to Russia.
And there's another character in the story, former President Jacob Zuma. He said that last year that he wrote to President Putin asking to help bring the men back. So did it also play a role in bringing the men back?
At this stage, it's unlikely that former President Zuma had an influence over the men's return to South Africa. Zuma wrote to Russia's defense minister last September. In this letter, which he stated or termed as urgent, he described the men traveling to Russia for advanced military training. Zuma requested in this letter that the men's immediate withdrawal be done or would be withdrawn from combat, But from what we understand, that did not happen, and some were injured, in fact. Remember, Zuma had to take action as his party, the MKP, and his daughter are mentioned numerous times during this ordeal. His daughter, Duduzile Zuma Sambutla, and 2 others are being investigated currently for this matter. Several of the recruits, including the ones from Botswana, claim that Zuma Sambatla was the key one who told them they would receive security training and that they must sign contracts, which was in Russian that they couldn't understand, but they were allegedly very encouraged by her to sign these contracts. She has, however, denied any wrongdoing, but the repatriation seems to have ultimately been a collaboration between Ramaphosa and President Putin's offices and not Zuma at this stage.
Thank you very much for all these explanations. Eunice Masson, live from South Africa, from Cape Town. Thank you very much. Now, in DR Congo, there are reports that the military spokesperson for the M23 was killed in an army drone strike. Willy Ngoma had been one of the most visible faces of the rebel group. His death comes at a time of renewed tensions in eastern DRC. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
Willy Ngoma, the military spokesman for the M23 and one of the rebel group's best-known figureheads, was killed in a drone strike on Tuesday, according to several different sources. But the details about what exactly happened remain unclear. According to the sources who spoke anonymously, Ngoma was near Rubaya in the province of North Kivu when he and several other people were struck by a drone. M23 rebels have controlled Rubaya since 2024, and the area is home to a complex of globally important coltan mines. As much as 15% of the world's coltan, which is a mineral used in electronics, comes from the area. And according to the UN, the rebels earn about $800,000 a month on taxes from those mines. The whole area is highly strategic. US investors, for example, are interested in formally developing mines in Rubaya. The M23 hasn't communicated yet, and neither has the Congolese government claimed responsibility for the assassination of Willy Ngoma.
In Somalia, the number of people facing severe food insecurity has nearly doubled in just a year, now affecting 6.5 million individuals. The country is grappling with a devastating drought after 2 consecutive failed rainy seasons, and with humanitarian aid dwindling following US funding cuts. Many are now on the brink of famine. Laurent Bersécher.
In this camp for displaced persons on the outskirts of Mogadishu, a dozen men conduct their evening prayers before breaking the fast. But instead of the traditional iftar feast, there's only a small plate of dried dates to share between them.
We had to leave our farms and our animals behind, and now we're living on the edge of the city. Ramadan is going to be very hard for us, but people here are trying their best to stay strong.
The UN estimates some 6.5 million Somalis are currently experiencing crisis levels of food insecurity, a number that's more than doubled in the past year, with the country experiencing its second consecutive failed rainy season.
Over 1.8 million children are at risk of suffering acute malnutrition due to the worsening drought in 2026. This drought is attributable to below average rainfall during the DR rainy season late last year. In addition to the effects of climate change, substantial funding cuts over the past year have compelled humanitarian partners to scale back or to suspend critical life-saving programs.
As crops dry up and herd animals die of thirst, Somalia is also facing a drastic reduction in humanitarian assistance following cuts in U.S. funding. Aid agencies now warn of looming famine and are urgently calling for international donors to step up to help sustain emergency food programs.
Somalia is literally at the brink of a humanitarian crisis. What we are lacking is resources, and we need resources now. You need to be able to prevent a further deterioration of the situation.
The World Food Programme was recently forced to scale back operations in Somalia by nearly 75% and warned last week it will have to stop providing aid altogether if it doesn't receive new funding by April.
And in other news, in brief, at least 28 people have been killed after Sudan's paramilitary RSF attacked the town of Miseria, a stronghold of tribal leader Musa Hilal. The assault targeted a healthcare center and forced residents to flee. The RSF has not commented Monday's attack. The Monday's attack came 4 months after the RSF overran El Fasher, the provincial capital of North Darfur, after 18 months of siege. The attack highlights the escalating violence in Sudan's war, which has killed thousands and triggered the world's largest humanitarian crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed Michael Randjanirin, Madagascar's interim leader, for high-stakes talks in Paris. This meeting comes on the heels of Randjanirin's recent discussions with President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Macron's office said ahead of the talks that their aim is to consolidate and renew this relationship, stressing that relations with Madagascar remained a priority for France in Africa. The island is rich in resources like nickel and cobalt. And Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko is pushing for a draft law that would double prison sentences for same-sex relations from 5 to 10 years, as part of a broader crackdown on LGBT people. During a speech to the National Assembly, Sonko said the maximum penalty would apply to any same-sex act involving a person under 21, with fines of up to 10 million francs CFA. He urged cross-party support for the bill and accused Western countries of fueling debate over LGBT rights in Senegal. Ousmane Sonko also took the opportunity to criticize a Moroccan court's decision to jail 18 Senegalese football fans. The supporters received sentences ranging from 3 months to 1 year, along with fines over pitch invasion during last month's Africa Cup of Nations final in Rabat. Sonko said the ruling was regrettable between two friendly nations and suggested that Senegal could seek their transfer home under a bilateral agreement.
We noticed that the handling of this case has gone beyond the realm of sport, and we must say that we condemn and regret this. For countries that claim to be friends, such as Morocco and Senegal, things should not have come to this, because sport and passion are linked.
And we leave you with these beautiful images. Cape Verde's Sal Island hosted the 2026 JKA Kitesurf with the world's best kite surfers. The iconic shores of Ponta Preta are among the sport's most demanding and spectacular wave locations, known for its powerful Atlantic swells and reliable trade winds at this time of year. The competition welcomed a full roster of 24 men and 16 women, representing more than 13 nationalities. So the first GK Kitesurf World Cup of the season concluded with Australia's James Carew and Brazil's Sebastián Ribeiro sharing first place, while Machu Lopez from Spain and Gabriel Benetton, Brazil, secured joint third. Cape Verde's Sal Island to conclude this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching and stay with us for more news.